20. Half an hour passed without a sound. I wondered whether the owner's return to his cabin or the changing of the guard would occur first. If the latter, we would have problems. The man feeding the bonfire was stuffed underneath the building in which we sat, because unbound humanoids in Enora didn't vanish after they died like wildlife did. Although I'd locked the one atop the rise, enemy forces would scour the place for their missing, and for whoever might have killed them. Then the lock on the door rattled. I pumped my fist in victory. Then Amelia and I set our backs against the wall on either side of the door. The man who stepped inside was huge. An amber glow surrounded him, leading me to believe he might have been a caster with a protective aura. But a quick check corrected that.
Mrak Gilby, level 45, Guardian.
Another class I hadn't encountered. Sounded tankish, but he didn't wear armor. Instead, a fine silken shirt covered his broad chest. A silver chain with a medallion bounced on his breastbone as he turned to reach for the doorknob and draw it toward him. That's when he spied Amelia. His chest puffed up as if he'd call out, but she shoved her dagger toward his midsection to force him back. I yanked the door closed as the elf leapt like a crouching panther. Gilby slipped to one side, spun in a reverse circle, then brought his elbow flush against the back of her head. Amelia tripped and plowed into the desk leaning against the opposite wall. It broke in two under her weight. The Guardian grasped the back neckline of her leather vest. I lurched forward, shoving a katana toward his back, then veered to one side as I missed. It was like an unseen force redirected the thrust, but I knew it was a system mechanic. After all, Gilby was 5 levels higher. He tossed Amelia across the cabin so she slammed into the footboard of the bed. Her eyes rolled in her head, then closed as her chin dipped. Gilby wheeled toward me. His eyes shone. An evil grin revealed a set of perfect white teeth I hadn't expected. He cocked the fingers of both hands toward himself in invitation. "Come along, then. What are you waiting for?" I clutched the single katana as I paced to the side, hoping to keep him off balance. "Who the hell are you, anyway?" "Doesn't matter who I am. You've obviously aligned yourself with those damned nosy elves. We're going to start executing them at sunrise unless we get paid. Too bad you won't be around to see it." "Oh, in that case, I have just 2 words for you." "Yeah? And what are those?" "Tenkasuru." Flames ignited the blade of my katana above the hilt, then spread to the tip, washing his face in the orange glow. Gilby took a failing step backward, then stumbled, but he managed to stay upright. His face flushed red, then he seethed. "I'll have this place swarming with men in a minute." My heart thumped in a regular beat. A clan or party chat would spell our ruination, and I hadn't even considered how a guard didn't need to call out. I lunged, forcing the port owner to dodge again. He slid across the narrow space with a grace I hadn't expected, then ripped a jagged piece of wood from the broken table to counter. I shifted my weight to parry the incoming strike, then slammed my heel into his knee. Gah! Gilby dropped to the knee, but when I pressed my advantage, he whacked my thigh with the edge of the board, then brought it up, into my jewels. Lightning struck my midsection, then pain webbed in all directions. He brought the weapon up and into an overhead arc while I was distracted, but I managed to raise the katana again and block the incoming strike. Face to face in our crouched position, we crossed our weapons. A struggle for superiority ensued. Flames from my sword licked the wood, then one caught hold to dance between us. The larger man set his good foot, then used his weight against me, driving me back toward the wall at the end of the cabin. His plan worked since I couldn't seem to spread my knees apart with my nuts slit up. In a blurry chain of motions, he ducked to one side, slid the plank so my sword went wide, then whipped the makeshift weapon across my face. The 35 hit point loss didn't reflect the pain lighting up my cheekbone and ear. My back slammed into the wall, and a gasp of breath left my lungs. Gilby lunged, hoping to cause some real damage as the jagged edge of the plank zipped my way, but I let my hilt drop, then slid my back to the right. My adversary's lunge brought his chest down on the blade as the plank shattered against the bulkhead behind me. Unable to leverage the strength to drive the sword up with his weight bearing down, I slipped one hand into the front of his shirt, clutched hard, then dragged him toward me, using his weight against him. The sword dug into the dimple in the center of his chest. I released the weapon, slid to the side just enough to free my arm, then brought an elbow around to clock him on the chin. A hollow crack sounded, and his head dipped limply to one side, but the bastard just didn't want to die. His head steadied, and when I came back around, he tried to speak. Blood poured forth over his bottom lip. Unable to shove him off, I slid one hand behind my back, drew free a dagger, then punched him in the side of the neck with the bottom of the hilt. His eyes rolled. His head went limp again. I twisted the dagger around, aimed for his cheekbone, and swung. He drove my sword deeper as he dropped so the hilt hit the floor, and my dagger went wide. Again the bastard wouldn't die. This time he brought his head around in a tight swing. Bone thunked bone as it slammed into the side of my face. The room spun, twirled, shimmied to and fro. Gilby shifted, pushed off the wall, then dropped onto his back. The tip of the katana's blade hit the floor, and the weapon slid halfway out of his chest. By the time the tilting steadied and I pushed up, the crazy bastard pushed through the door. If I didn't get upright and finish him, someone would spot him, and it would be game over. When we'd started, there'd been 44 defenders. We'd whittled it down to 41. No way in hell would we be able to take on that many people. But when I crawled to the door and readied myself to draw my bow, a whistling sound filled the air. Then a tracer shot through his head. Gilby stumbled, righted himself, lolled back and forth as one hand reached toward the side of his head. Then he fell into the fire. A cat-like humanoid rushed into the clearing, scanned all around, then spotted me. Machini? Where the hell? The way he'd fought, I wasn't leaving anything to chance. Once I was on my feet, I still had to cling to the door jamb and wait for the vertigo to pass. Machini rushed over. Roshan and Sumi, crouched low, sped in from behind. The priestess wiggled her fingers. A heal-over time spell warmed me against the cold wind blowing in from the coast. Machini set a hand on my shoulder.
Are you well, master?
I grunted. I'd be better if your sister'd been here to tank that asshole. I cocked my chin toward the burning figure, but it was Tsumi who had the wherewithal to grab Gilby's legs, pull him away from the fire, then reach down for the bladed boomerang before it could burn. She drew her hand back when she tried to touch the weapon, then shook it furiously. Amelia appeared next to me in the doorway and waved the others inside. We gathered. Roshan wore a wrinkled-up expression, the meaning of which I knew all too well.
Why would you two come here alone against so many?
How did you know we were here?
Stop answering my questions with questions, Gemini Fowler. How is it you still haven't learned? Never leave your party behind.
We both have stealth. We thought we'd have it done by the time you finished napping.
And you didn't account for how this special assault performed by party members might set off an alert and wake us?
Actually, I hadn't accounted for that. Okay, 1 point for you. She shook her head.
Not a game.
It was, but I knew better than to correct her. I couldn't explain it anyway. Well, I'm glad you showed up when you did. If he'd have gotten the message off, it would have disrupted stealth takedown mode, and we'd have been forced to kill them all. She frowned.
Saving your ass is becoming a habit. I thought when I moved to Warrington...
What, immortality isn't working for you anymore? Her jaw unhinged in a lazy lull.
Insufferable to the end, noob.
I grinned. Thanks for the heal.
You're welcome.
She eyed the fallen boss.
What's next?
I shrugged. No idea. Gilby's leg twitched violently, then stilled, and an announcement filled one pane as it zipped to the middle of my screen.
You have completed a quest. Just do it all again. You journeyed to Greycutter Downs and stopped the renegades from establishing a port. Rewards, 17,200 XP, plus 50 reputation with New Nin. Current reputation, respected, 135 of 500. Next rank, esteemed. Bonus objective available. Capture the port and award its ownership to New Nin. Bonus reward, plus 200 reputation with New Nin. Max combatants, 12. Alternative bonus objective. Capture the port for Skyville. Alternative bonus reward. Greycutter Port will be awarded to the Fowler Foundation. You will be able to select what percentage of the spoils flow into your coffers.
A new slew of messages popped up in a side window. I resized both panes so they were viewable.
Machini has defeated a level 45 Guardian. Congratulations, you have captured a resource node. Greycutter Downs. Once a thriving port bringing goods to eastern Rubal, Greycutter Downs was evacuated during the Great Eastern Beast Uprising. Takedown type. Stealth. Rewards. 2,000 gold. Possession of the resource node. 17,500 XP. Additional XP. Defeated enemies. Level 39 Spearman. 3,465 XP. 4,135 XP. 4,135 XP. Level 34 Fighter. 2,950 XP. Mrak Gilby. Level 45 Guardian. 6,500 XP.
The sight of my XP bar flashing multiple times in succession with each tick sliding the golden color to the right thrilled me. Probably more than it should have. If there was anything in the world I couldn't stand, it was sitting at the same level for so long, and I hadn't gained a new one since... Gods, was it in Surin's depths? I continued reading.
To utilize the resources found in this node, you may open a portal to your home instance. Portal cost 500 gold. All enemy combatants have been teleported outside the instance. If you wish to maintain this captured resource, you must defend it. There will be a 4-hour cooldown before Greycutter can be raided. Do you wish to add Greycutter Downs to Skyville, or would you like to assign it to an ally?
The answer to that question resided in my Foundation guide. Although Michonne, goblins, and dwarves also thrived on diets including fish, the river rushing through Skyville more than met our needs. The elves, however, had to labor to climb down the cliffs on the eastern side of New Nin to fish in the sea. When Queen Semansia gave me an introductory tour what seemed like ages ago, she'd mentioned how their fishers climbed down ladders and used a rope and pulley system to send fish back in huge buckets. The docks would be the perfect place to fish, and a portal tuned to Semansia's in New Nin would mean all the elves had to do was fish and walk right through. I planned to take Broomhill and keep it for myself, and considering what had happened to Priya, the decision was obvious.
You have gifted Greycutter Downs to your ally, Queen Semansia Renard. You must select a representative to hold the node for Semansia Renard, since she isn't present.
We hiked down to the coastal path, past the first 2 docks, then up the dirt path leading to the row house devoid of windows. Another padlock hung there, and Sumi broke it with the pommel of her dagger. After all, who needs lockpicking skills? I muttered in a derisive tone. When the door swung open, I wondered if the elves resided there, but when I stepped up the ramp, I found them on the opposite end, sitting in yogi positions like they meditated. An elf with long black hair stood first, then hustled over.
Master Fowler, is it you?
Although she wore the same angular features as Semansia, that's where the resemblance stopped. Her dark irises could have been mistaken for the same black as the glossy hair draping over the fronts of both shoulders. Please forgive me, have we met? She shook her head.
Not officially. I'm Navis Reeladark. I command this unit for Queen Semansia.
The others rose and approached, but didn't step past their commander. It's nice to meet you. Despite red, tired eyes and slumped shoulders, she greeted each member of my party warmly after I introduced them.
Elves, I thought I might never meet one, even less this many.
Sumi bowed at Navis.
It is my honor. Tales of your people pervade the West. If my village knew I'd encountered you, why, they'd blush with envy.
Navis laughed in a melody.
Well, we're just elves, but thank you for saying that.
Her attention returned to me.
Tell me, Shenhua, what's the status of our captors?
Her gaze flitted around the group.
Are there more of you outside, or did you dispatch them all with 5?
We performed a stealth takedown. I awarded Greycutter to your queen. Is it proper that I hand you ownership until the elves decide how to handle the new resources?
You gave it to us.
Although the urge to say, it was the least I could do since my wife killed a bunch of your most powerful people, crossed my mind, I didn't let it anywhere near my lips. So I went with, I have quite the supply of fish at the Foundation, and will probably never run out. The Queen made me aware of the challenges with fishing in New Nin due to the lack of lakes in the immediate vicinity. We're allies, I shrugged. It made sense.
I don't mean to seem ungrateful, Shenhua, and I'll be happy to take this resource in the Queen's name, but this kind of thing hasn't happened since the long ago. Thousands of years.
Hadn't considered that. It's a player thing, hence the instancing. She continued.
It's only fair I mention that, if the lore is right, this port would also allow us to open trade routes. Are you certain you won't benefit by keeping it for yourself?
I probably would, but I'm heading south to kick the asses of some of the king's men, and when I'm finished with them, I'll own Broomhill. So you take the port, and we'll work out mutually beneficial trade contracts later, yeah? She bowed deeply so her flowing obsidian locks hung low.
I hold no doubts the Queen will do exactly that. Thank you, Shenhua.
I brought up my interface and transferred Greycutter into her stewardship.
Bonus objective fulfilled. You have awarded Greycutter Downs to New Nin. Current reputation. Respected. 335 of 500. Next rank. Esteemed.
Navis immediately merged our parties so we wouldn't be booted from the instance, then turned to her management window to allow all allies into Greycutter. I thanked her, then bowed to match her custom. Now that we've covered ownership, you have about 40 people outside the instance who are probably going to come back in 4 hours.
Yes, I see the countdown timer. Don't worry, Gemini. May I call you?
Yes.
Thank you. Don't worry, Gemini. My people will not be caught looking the other way this time. We have more than enough fighters to keep this gift for the Queen. I'd be honored if you would stay the night, but I understand if you need to move on to Brumhill.
I considered the offer, but Brumhill wasn't the end point of my journey, and although I didn't look forward to Zara's reaction when she learned I'd lost her daughter to a, well, demon, I guess, I owed my mother-in-law in a big way. She'd sent me underground to remove Kroll, Kaim's level 8 minion who'd been farming for entropy crystals beneath the dark wood, and if it hadn't been for that quest, I'd never have liberated her daughter, even less had a child with her. Although I doubted whether Zara really hadn't known Priya was down there and that her sight didn't pervade the underground, I knew better than to look a gift horse in the mouth. If you'll forgive me, we have more business of a pressing nature in the south after Brumhill. But if you'd welcome us, we'll visit on our return trip, should events allow for it. She bowed again.
Understood. And of course you'd be welcome. Would you like an escort through the Western Pass?
I shook my head. We're traveling south along the coast. There's a narrow valley between 2 forests that will take us right to the road leading to Brumhill.
Very well, but I'll send a pair of my people with you to ensure.
I waved her offer away. Don't worry. If a contingent was teleported that direction, we'll dispatch them or notify you.
Very well, Shenhua.
We stayed long enough to help the elves find their gear, which was strewn about the cabin I hadn't entered atop the hill. We exited the instance on the eastern side to retrieve our mounts from their hiding place and caught no sight nor sound of the renegades who'd been evicted from Greycutter. Maybe they'd given up and decided a run at the liberated elves might not work in their favor. If so, they'd proven wiser than I'd given them credit for. Once the elves had geared up and prepared to send a couple scouts into the hills and along the eastern path to the plains in search of their enemies, we exited the instance, moving south along the coast.
You have discovered the mid-eastern coastline, plus 1475 XP.
An unfamiliar message popped up below.
You have left Greycutter Downs. Clan chat enabled.
Standard, Enora. Wait until after I learn how something works to include it in my notifications. I had the distinct impression all the messages about updates to my player's manual needed my attention.